All right, I will start over, which is Chris Tobin, St. Louis Fire, of course. The standard disclaimer: Chris's opinions do not represent those of his department. Yada yada yada, et cetera, et cetera. But I was saying that last year I got to catch your Dare to Save down in Dallas, and I wanted to. The beginning of it, you play the music, you play the footage, and it's awesome. It's nothing but kicking ass, taking on fire, and then when it's over, you come on and say, "Now I want everybody to understand this is all my helmet cam footage. None of that is taken from anywhere else except my helmet cam." And that to me was so impressive at the beginning of that little presentation. So go ahead.
Yeah. So the point that I do that is, well, I mean, first of all, the music is just because anytime we do these classes or you go to any conferences, it's just, honestly, it's boring, right?
Yes.
I mean, I'm shut off before we even start talking because we're all sitting in this dark room. Half of us are hungover. The other half of us have just eaten. And, I mean, the last thing everyone wants to hear is a human voice. So I decided to do something different, and I wanted to wake everyone up, and that's just how I do it. Not to mention, in my opinion, I think it gets people ready to learn. It gets people ready to experience something. If you think about before anything important happens, what do we do, right? We play music, whether it's a football game, whether it's anything. There's always music or something before it gets going. So that's kind of where I got that idea from, and it seems to be pretty successful. But to specifically go back to what you're alluding to with the video is, I'm a big stickler on using my own stuff just because I like to critique myself, and no one's going to talk more shit on me than me. So I don't like using anyone else's stuff if I don't have to, unless it's to give praise or to say what a good job that they have done, but never to criticize. So
right on.
And that's why I use that my own helmet cam footage specifically, and just to show people that, I mean, this is my own lessons I've learned from my own doing and my own work. So unfortunately, we no longer have a helmet cam. We're not able to do that anymore due to a lot of reasons. But I'm glad I got to see what I was able to get during those times, because I use it as game footage, essentially, training film. That's what it was to me, and it was incredible to see stuff that I didn't even know I was subconsciously doing until I got to record myself working, and it gave me a lot of ways to improve myself. So.
No, it was awesome, and like you said, it really does catch your attention right out the beginning when it starts screaming, and so there's no sleeping through that one. So
right.
Now, if you want to take a few seconds, introduce yourself to those. I know you're not big on bios, which is something I'll touch on later, but you're not big on bios. But go ahead and, for the viewers, let them know who you are. Quick.
Yeah. So I have a pretty eclectic pedigree in the fire service. I've been in it for 16 years now, and starting off as a volunteer, worked my way up to a combination department. I did some contract work with the Defense Department out of high school. I worked overseas in Iraq. I came back, and I was a industrial fire inspector for Chrysler in their plants. So I got to mingle around with sprinkler systems and that kind of stuff. And then from there, I went on and I got a job in the city of St. Louis, and I've been there for 10 years now. And I currently work at Rescue 2. So that's where I'm at.
Nice. Perfect. Now, the other thing is you have definitely written a lot of material over the years. You are not shy in sharing your opinions. I'm going to touch on just some of the ones that you've given me the privilege of publishing at Firehouse Vigilance, which is one of my favorites, Renaissance Rising and the Culture of Extinguishment. Man, I love that article. One of my all-time favorite articles. The half story, I still use that one to reference, to explain to people what a half story is, because even I've been in construction since I was 16 years old, and that article on the half story kind of just solidified, like, this is our common terminology. This is a half story. I love that, and I still use it to this day. The Senior Man and Empty Walls, all about culture, and you've run the gamut, especially the latest stuff with the Fireman's Guide to Main Street. I'm actually getting emails saying, when's episode 4 of the Fireman's Guide to Main Street coming out?
Yeah.
Those things are in depth, but go ahead, talk.
Yeah, it all started with the social media thing, which was by complete accident. I never aspired to be a whatever you want to label me as, in that way as far as an influence. So
You were an influencer. There's no doubt. On Twitter, man. Holy crap.
yeah,
It
that
was like
was
a vacuum when you just disappeared.
it was, and I did that for a reason, but we'll get to that later. But while I was there, I did my 5 years online, and I started off, like you said, very opinionated. I learned a lot of lessons. Maybe that's not the best way to be. I personally don't feel like that's the best way to be. You got to understand, and from doing that, I learned that there's no such thing as right or wrong in the fire service. It's 30,000 fire departments in this country. It's 1.2 million firemen, and for the most part, we all do things differently. And to get online and share an opinion really doesn't lead to anything good for anyone. Even if you feel you're right, even if the majority feels you're right. Um, what I learned was that there's no such thing as right or wrong. It's just best, better, and different. And I've been privileged to go all over the country, and I've seen a lot of different stuff. I've seen stuff that I would have said very bad things about, but I know that they make it work where they're at, and to them it's right. So the main thing is you have to have some sort of tolerance when you see something that you don't agree with. That doesn't make it wrong. Plus, people jump to conclusions. They don't try to understand what they're even seeing. I came in social media at a weird time in the fire service when there was a lot of the science was, all the studies were starting to be done. None of them were complete. There was a lot of stuff out there, and I was definitely guilty of jumping on the bandwagon. And like you said, I definitely shared my opinion. Maybe wasn't the best idea at some of those times. But in the end, people don't realize I was friends with everyone. I never had any true enemies, still don't. Everyone that I ever got in any sort of argument with online or spat, and some of them would go on for weeks at a time. We're all friends. Those are people that I can call, and those are all people that I have. The most important lesson is everyone I've ever argued with, I've learned from. So those people are still teaching me things, and a lot of people just think that I don't get along, or that certain people don't get along with certain people. But that's just not the case. And that's what big conferences, I think the value in those, or that we all kind of do get to come together and have dinner at the same table, and we all know where we disagree and agree at. We know that it's a professional etiquette of that. But at the end of the day, we're all friends. I don't have anyone out there that I avoid or try to stay away from per se. But that was the biggest thing that kind of bothered me about social media is you don't know that. You just don't. You can't see that right
You can't, yeah.
So there's no
There's
way.
no nuance. Yeah.
There's no inflection in the written word or anything like that. So, but yeah, social media was kind of a weird time when I came into it, and I started off, like I said, kind of just beating a drum. In the end, it was probably not the best thing to do, but from there I definitely matured, and I do have a really good article I'll publish eventually about the lessons that I did learn through those 5 years online. And if you were able to see from start to finish, you would see the progression of the material that I put out, and nearing the end. And I knew as soon as I got online that I didn't ever want to stay online. I didn't want to be doing that. I didn't want to be a 30-year guy getting on Twitter every day. That's not something that appeals to me. So I knew it was a perishable thing for me, and I wanted to make the best of it. But if you could see the progression near the end, I only put stuff online that people could learn from. I definitely tried never to share my opinion. I only tried to state something that I learned directly from that day at work, or the previous fire, maybe the hour before. And if those things didn't happen, I would try to find something that I learned and share it and say, hey, this is some neat, really relevant stuff, and here's why it's relevant. I definitely went out of my way in the end to really hold myself accountable and not criticize, not tear people down. Because quite honestly, the fire service does a really bad job of taking care of each other. we're the best. We're the best liars in the world. Brotherhood exists on a local level, but you step out of your zip code, and it ain't there. So, so I try to get away from that in social media and just try to just pass on what I was learning, and that's how I wanted to kind of leave it, and that's how I did leave it. So I started off kind of in a one way, and then I learned, through making some mistakes, and then I learned, and then I think I righted it. I would like to say I righted it before I left. So.
No, and I kind of met you near the tail end of the arc, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so right at the point when you were sharing the articles and stuff, the learning stuff, and so that's really fortunate for me, because it's been some of the best articles that Firehouse Vigilance has had online.
Yeah, and I think
Go
you
Green.
were maybe one of the first or second people I told, because I was trying to plan an exit strategy of how to do it properly, or maybe do it tastefully. Because when you just disappear off social media, of course, everyone has negative thoughts, scandal, or some sort of
Sure.
I got in trouble. None of that happened. It was completely by design. I just was trying to figure out the best way to do it that would benefit. But it happened on a Sunday night at 10:30. I was laying in the bunk hall, and my last post is something to do with actual something I never ever talked about, because quite honestly it did not resonate with me, was PTSD and suicide. And my last post was a kind of a support for those people who I know that need it. And that was my last post. It was basically, support for those people if you need help. And I looked up all the numbers I could find. I tagged all the people that followed me that was their thing.
Right
I tagged
on.
them all in that post, and that was it. I basically said,
That was the last one.
yeah, I said it's been great. I think I thanked everyone for what I learned from everyone, and that was what I wanted. That was my goal every day I got online. I wanted to learn more than I taught, and that was the major reason I got offline, was because that was out of balance. I was no longer learning more than I was teaching, and that is unacceptable from just my own personal perspective. I always want to. I have a ratio. I would like to be learning at least 3 times more than I'm teaching. So that wasn't happening, and I was I was so busy going around teaching. And you do learn quite a bit when you teach, but I wasn't learning new things. I was teaching what I knew the most, and what I knew the most was my comfort zone. So
Sure.
I wasn't necessarily learning new things, and that bugged me. And what bugs me even more is I have friends whose classes I still want to take and have not gotten to take them. So I was almost feeling like left behind. It's really cool watching Aaron Fields teach next to you, but it's better to be taught by Aaron Fields. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sitting in the class.
So, and also something that I never had a taste for was the publicity and the notoriety. Now, I'm not that guy. Anyone that knows me personally, I avoid firemen. I don't hate firemen. Obviously that'd be weird, but I'm just not a crowd sociable kind of person. I don't like seeing my face up everywhere. I never liked that kind of. I never got into that kind of thing. I never wanted to be remembered as an instructor. That's not something I want to be remembered as a student. And I knew that wasn't going to happen if I stayed doing what I was doing. So those two factors were made it easy. Made it easy for me to say bye to the social media stuff. But that being said, I can focus now more on writing, and I think the written word is the most influential way in the fire service. So I always said, that the best response to a 240 character, tweet is a 2,400, word essay. So
Nice.
you can explain yourself much more in depth with an article or whatever, or a blog, if you have one of those, than you can, just with a little blurb. Because all this social media is ADHD, shock media.
There's no doubt, no doubt.
And that's why it's
Sound
so
bites.
successful. So you can learn little snippets, but I really wanted to take what I had, my material online. I wanted to coalesce that and expand on everything that I had learned and that I had put up. I wanted to make some of my tweets and into whole articles. And like you said, that's what I've linked up with some really good people that write better than me, and I'm doing some writing with people, and we're doing that. So I like to say we're educating the fire service through articles now, and it's not just tweets. I don't like being anyone's entertainment. So, and that's what social media kind of is to me. It's kind of an entertainment,
Sure.
faucet. But I wanted to be a little more professional with how I was conducting that. And like I said, I'm back in the classroom now. You might not know it, but I might be sitting behind you in the most random class in the smallest town. I don't tell anyone where I'm at. I do still help departments if they ask me to come out. I've never charged a single penny for anything I've ever done. That's just my personal philosophy. I don't think I should ever be compensated or profit off of teaching. That does not. I don't agree with that. Now, if you do that, if you have an LLC, good for you, great. That's just not me. So I do.
One of the things you told me when I met you down in Dallas was like, you said, hey, give me a bunk and give me a place to stay and a few beers, and I will come and teach my whole thing to anybody who will have me. Get me there. That's what you said. And so I've always respected you for that.
So, and so at one point in my life, I was the highest paid fireman in the world. I worked overseas with a private contractor. We started off well over six figures. I was pulling in $121,000 a year. And people got weird. Your friends get weird with money. My mom at one point basically, asked me for money, and it put a really bad taste in my mouth with money. So at that point, I said, I'll never make it. I'll never, ever, ever do anything again. I'll never have money being the primary factor of motivation. So that's kind of where that came from. But then, years later in the fire service, a lot of people are out there for the wrong reasons. I'll just put it to you, I guess, frankly, in that perspective. Now, it doesn't mean yes, I agree, you should be compensated. Time is time. People away from their families and stuff. But at the same time, when I teach my driving factor for teaching is I feel obligated to pass on what I know. I understand I work in an area that sees more fires than most. St. Louis isn't the busiest fire department. There's a lot of busier departments out there than St. Louis. But I understand that most people don't get to go to fires like I do. So I feel like I am obligated to pass that on. And I don't think that I should be in any way, shape, or form profiting off that. I don't have to teach anyone anything. I don't have to talk. I don't have to do any of this. But at the end of the day, I just feel like I'm obligated to do that just because from where I'm at. So that's why I do what I do. And I think the future of instructing in the fire service is changing. We saw a lot of small conferences kind of come and go. Now, I think what, in my opinion, is going to be the way of the future is what I call the embedded fire instructor, is where you go out to these departments instead of sending one person to FDIC or a large conference, sending one member to go, and then that member does what? And they come back. They might. What do they bring back with them?
Right.
Do they bring back anything? So maybe how many people in the department don't even want to go to that conference? So
right.
when the department sends one person to these conferences, who are they sending? Right, they're sending usually their top performer, the go-getter. It's usually that 1 to 5 year member, maybe a 10-year member, and they come back, and that member unfortunately gets shit on when they come back. They don't share their knowledge. If they try to share their knowledge, they're not received well. So instead of having that happen and that department spending that money to send that person out, why not have the instructors come, a small group of instructors come, stay in your firehouse, get the pulse on the culture, see your trucks, see your daily checks, see the morning roll call, the routine, and then you can basically do a custom package of training in your whole fire department at one time for the same price as sending one person to a high-end conference. So that's where I think it's going, and I have had huge success with that model, and that's what I do. A department will call me, and I'll come out, and I'll
Nice.
stay with them in their firehouse. I'll eat dinner with the guys. I'll get breakfast in the morning. I'll watch roll call. I'll see how they check their trucks. I'll identify training gaps. I'll recommend certain things they do. And now, I'm not a chief officer, so I'm not going to the chiefs and being like, "Hey, do this." That ain't how it works. I'm at a basic skills fireman level. So, but that doesn't go to say you can't bring with you, a line officer and a chief officer with you in that group. 4 or 5 people come into a department, and you can do a top to bottom scrub and identify training gaps and fix an entire department literally in a week's time. You can have massive ramifications on that department's culture. And I think that's the most highly proficient and effective way to train. Hopefully it goes that way. So,
wow. No, that would be, I mean, I can only imagine how many departments would benefit from that kind of outward in inspection almost. Some departments, of course, might reject it. Some would embrace it to varying levels and degrees, depending on the culture itself. But like you said, compared to sending one guy to FDIC, the difference is amazing there.
Right. It's just so much more effective. I mean, you totally break the ice when you're eating dinner with these guys. We're sleeping in the same bunk hall together, where I get to go on calls with these people. That's why I make sure I go, can I run calls with you guys? I don't care if I watch, whatever. I just want to see how you guys operate. And that's so much better than just some random instructor showing up at your doorstep, waiting for their check to get written for them.
Right.
That's ridiculous. That's what makes the fire service suck. We let it happen. We let it happen. We have these people just come, and we just pay for words. The fire service doesn't need any more talkers. It needs more teachers. So that's what the fire service lacks, really. And I got the idea from the military. I watched how the military trains foreign armies. They send a very small group of highly skilled members to these foreign armies and train them up. 4 or 5 guys will train hundreds. It's not hard. And I kind of saw this from the fire service when I went to Africa, and that's a great thing to do. If anyone's familiar with Africa Fire Mission, they're expanding over that entire continent. I got to kind of do that with them there. A small group of us, 10 to 12 people, completely trained an entire country's fire service over 10 days. So it's definitely doable. It's possible, and it's highly affordable. So
Lucas Chu asked Tobin, do you have an evaluation model that you use when you do things like that?
No, because there's so much variance. There's no way. I don't even know how you would begin to start that. I'm not saying it's not possible, but
right.
Like I said, there's so much variance in the fire service. You have to really go into it with an open mind. So you kind of just it all comes together, as it's happening. So
no, the skill set you'd have to be able to adapt to. I mean, everything from 2-man truck companies all the way up to 6-man engine companies, and everything in between, and responses and districts and water supplies, and God bless, it's like
right.
When you start. Did you lock up? Nope, there you are.
That's what you get from. No, I'm good. I just had a call.
Okay.
So that's what. To answer your question there, I am with a group of about 12 awesome, top-notch fellow firemen who also teach with me. I've taught with them at FDIC. I've taught with them in multiple states around the country. And, the saying is surround yourself with people that know more than you. These are those people that know more than me. I keep in constant contact with these people on a daily basis. We're in a group chat together. And they're everything from chiefs down to just line firemen. And I'm able to evaluate a situation based off more than just my skills. So I have this asset.
Sure.
And this group of people are like my second family. And I can bring these people out at any given time, and they might have the opposite quest. I might help them somewhere in a different state. So we're able to evaluate a department with, like you said, staffing and stuff like that because we all work across the country. We're not just, I'm not bringing a Midwestern culture, right? I mean, all of us work in all different parts of this country. So we've seen it, you know, 2-man, 3-man, 4-man, 5-man, you know, I get it. And not to mention all of us are we're all volunteers and or career. So we get both sides of the fence. I understand. I have a blue light and a pager in my house right now. So, you know, I get it when they say, you know, we don't get staffing. You know, I understand what they're saying what they mean with that. So that's how I get around that. So it's not like, don't get it mixed up. It's not like the Chris Tobin like fire model. You know, it's not. I'm just one person. I'm just one little advisor, you could say, in the equation. I always bring help with me, and I make sure I always get a vacant building. I have to have a real actual. I no longer train in burn buildings. I no longer train in concrete or metal boxes. That doesn't do anything. I can't pass skills on to anyone unless I have a real building. So that's my first question when any department contacts me. I go, do you have a vacant house? And if their answer is no, then I tell them to call me back when they can get one.
Wow. Okay. So if someone wanted to reach out to you for that, what's the best way to reach you for setting that up?
You could probably just Google my name.
Okay.
My number's out there, man. And that's the thing is, I'm not trying to go out and do this. I'm not trying to get busier. So
fair enough.
But I've never turned a place down. You know, like I said, if I can't, I know about a dozen people that think just like me and know way more than me, and they'll make it happen. So
that's awesome.
But yeah, that's where I think the future of instructing is going. I think it should be going more of an in-house embedded type training. So.
Okay. I got 2 questions I always ask you. Well, one question I always ask yes, and you're the first one I'm asking this other one too, so I'm trying to get more positive because I always ask what do you think the number one problem facing the modern American fire service is? If you can put it into words in Chris Tobin's illustrious opinion. And I've always asked this question, but I'm kind of like, it feels like a negative question. So I have a follow-up that is, you're the first one who gets it, but go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that the number one challenge in the fire service would just be declining fire. Lack of experience. So, and
it's hard to argue.
There's definite ways around that, you know. So that's it. I would say that's without a doubt the training gaps are glaring. I can't even start to count the amount of times I've been in a building doing a conference, and I've asked everyone in the room, hey, what kind of type 1 through 5, what kind of building are we in right now? And not a single person out of this 100+ group knew what kind of building they're even in. Now they'll argue with you all day about aggressive firefighting and all that, you know, whatever. But they'll get in a fist fight over that stuff, but they have no idea what building they're even sitting in. So how crazy is that, right? Like where are our priorities right now? So before you start arguing where a hose stream should be operated from, and it really, I can care less. But before you start arguing that, how about you figure out what kind of building you're freaking sitting in? You know, like start there. So that would, in my opinion, that's the greatest problem right now is just lack of experience. Priorities are out of whack. So
that's hard to argue if you got, of course. The first time I've ever asked this question is you've almost answered it, I think, but something you are extremely excited about for the future of the American Fire Service.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, how the instructing circuit is evolving.
Right.
So that's a system of checks and balances. I'd like to say the machine, some people call it the machine, is kind of fractured at the moment. It's a weird place right now out there for fire instructors in general. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens. The market's definitely saturated. What people don't realize is that there's out of the 1.2 million firemen in this country, it's a small fraction that are going to all these conferences. There's a small fraction, maybe a couple tens of thousands, maybe. And we see the same faces over and over again. I see the same faces over and over again, and I'm only in a handful of states. So what we need to do, I don't know, we need to get more people back into to learning the trade side of things, I think the mission has definitely creeped away to a critical scale. And that matters because what's about to come in the next 2 to 3 years is going to rock the fire services world. Obviously, everyone's going through the same, pandemic right now. But
Right.
what no one is talking about is what happens after the economy totally just goes to shit after this is over. The fires are going to go up. The fires are absolutely going to go up. And I don't think it's going to be warrior fires, but we saw what happened after the Great Recession with the fires going up. We saw how Stockton became Stockton. And unfortunately, the fire service has done a really good job in the past few years of creeping itself away. And by past few years, I mean about the past decade and a half. The fire service has done a really good job of putting itself out of business, getting themselves more into EMS, and just totally shunting away firefighting skills. And that's fine when your department only runs 3 fires a year. But what happens when that number jumps to 30?
30.
Now
yeah.
what? Now what do you do? Now you're in now you're in unfamiliar territory. So, I don't see how we're not going to see fires go up. I can tell you from right now, my department is way busier. We have been going to not only more fires, we have been going to more occupied fires, because where is everyone at right now?
Oh yeah, they're at home. You ain't kidding.
Everyone is at home. This is the most populated, this country, the most, I guess, occupied
At home, yes.
this country has ever been in modern history. So everyone's at home doing human behavior things, and what causes fires? Human activity.
Yeah, you ain't
So
kidding.
vacant buildings don't catch themselves on fire. People do. So
Right.
you're gonna see a huge spike in fatal fires. You're gonna see a spike in people trapped, and I hope you have been throwing ladders. I hope you've sent your members to training instead of learning how
Learn
to
some PES skills, yes.
Right. So
No, absolutely.
that's around
And
the corner.
Scott Thompson, I caught him at Winter Workshop, Chief Thompson from the Colony. He made a great point about no one's ever seen what lightweight construction looks like after 50, 60 years of being around. And we're coming up on that, as it starts to, as it ages. And so combine that with the economy. A couple questions to throw at you. Lucas hit you with another one. Lucas Chu says, Chris, would you say that there's a lack of firemen asking questions coupled with a lack of firemen passing information on?
I would say the ones that are passing information on they're out there. They're far and few between. They're doing it at a local level. But asking questions, I would say it depends what generation you're in. To answer the question, frankly, I would say no. I don't think there's a shortage of that. There's probably too many people talking, in all honesty. Too many people talking that shouldn't be talking. And then no, I think for the most part, my generation and the ones younger than me, we ask a lot of questions. We're generation X and Y, so, and that's why we're generation Y.
No doubt.
So I mean, and I've always gotten in trouble, because I've asked too many questions. I've always been that kid, like, hey, why you ask so many questions?
Right. Number one thing's got me in trouble. That's the number one is the questions I ask. Like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing it this way? And sometimes it comes across negative, and I understand a lot of it's by inflection. But also, Eddie Anshori says, hello, greetings from the volunteers of the Indonesian Fire Department in Southern Kalimantan. If I mispronounced that, I'm sorry. But thank you from watching from Indonesia. So,
awesome,
man, a lot of good stuff so far. Chris, I always want to ask people what they're reading or if they have books. I always ask the guest if they have a book list or books that they would like to suggest that firemen should read, because I think reading is so important. So the first thing isn't a book, and I think people should get online and they should look up the socioeconomic factors of fire instances. It's written by FEMA, written in 1997, and that is probably the most underread report in our time, and it literally goes to tell you why fires happen. These are the reasons why fires happen. These are the groups. This is what vacant buildings do to fires. This is what poverty does to fires. You should definitely understand your social fabric. There's a massive lack of understanding of where you work and where people work. You have to understand the environment you're working in.
and why your fires are happening in your area, so you can be ready for them. Like I said, it's coming. It's
Wow.
what's around it. What's around the corner is going to catch a lot of people off guard.
And so you just do you just Google the FEMA socioeconomic
Yep.
fire statistics or whatever?
Just type in socioeconomic factors of fire instances.
Socioeconomic factors of fire. Okay. No, I'm writing this
And
down because I didn't know that one. So that's great to know.
and I mean, it
All right.
breaks it down. It breaks it down in exactly where fires are happening and where you can expect them to happen. And the study was done in 1997, and it absolutely rings true. And I've always said in my class, this is the era of declining fire. Everything we've learned was from the 70s and war years. And I've always said, and I hope I'm wrong, but I always said, and it'll never happen again unless there's some sort of global economic catastrophe. And unfortunately, where are we right now?
Right.
So,
right.
I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I hope I'm wrong. But other than that, I would read a book called The Fires by Joe Flood that specifically documents why the war years are so bad in New York. That book's great. It's called The Fires by Joe Flood.
The fires. Okay.
And those two books particularly pertain to what we just talked about with the impending situation. But other than that, I say get back in the old text. If I was a college professor right now, I would do an entire semester on old fire text and the lessons that are still relevant in today's fire service. Because back before 1980s, before IFSTA proliferated the publishing industry, we had actual trade manuals. I mean, these books are written like actual trade manuals. There was no agenda. There was no people that were writing these books were firemen. They weren't sitting behind a desk. There's about 4 or 5 books that are just absolutely amazing. Almost every page is something that is completely relevant or something that's almost unknown that is still relevant that you can't find anywhere else. And my personal favorite is Emmanuel Fried's book. Emmanuel Fried is Fireground Tactics, and I think the last publication was, I can look at it right here. The last publication I believe is like in '72, but Fireground Tactics by Emmanuel Fried would be what I consider the best fire service publication you can buy or find. And
that's pretty high praise for that.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal book. It is a absolutely phenomenal book. Other than that, there's about 4 or 5 other ones out there that go all the way back to the 20s. Actually, I got one right here. It's called Science and Firefighting, written by Lou Flanagan, and that one's published in 1920. And that one has right, Science and Firefighting. Who would have thought that was written in 1920?
Right.
So,
and they're probably still proving stuff that's in that book with these new studies.
And it's crazy to see the stuff that we have just forgotten and now is considered new. And like I said, there's nothing new in the fire service except for those who never knew it. And that's so true because it's the same principles over and over and over again that we're just now proving in a lab, which before we just let the street prove for us. Now there are some small things that you pick up in these books that is no longer accurate, the ventilation and stuff. And if you understand the fuel packages back in the day, you understand why the vent profiles are what they were then. So that's if you're new to the fire service, maybe these aren't the books you should be in. But once you have a couple years under your belt and understand fire dynamics and such, absolutely start reading backwards, because that's what actually taught me the most.
Gotcha.
In these books. So
because of course when they wrote these books, they weren't burning solidified diesel fuel, basically.
No,
it was all, okay.
It was they weren't. You're right, they weren't. But what they were doing is they were, especially the books written between the 60s and the 80s. I mean, that was the busiest time ever.
Right.
In
on.
recorded history for fires. So these people were so in tune with the job. I mean, it's amazing. Every single page just filled with paragraph after paragraph of just awesome stuff that I can use tomorrow. So
awesome. Well, Chris, man, thank you for coming on and taking the time out of your evening to be the guest on Weekly Scrap number 29. It's always fun to talk to you. I do miss you on Twitter. I'm not going to lie, because it was entertaining. And I know you say you're not an entertainer, but it was entertaining. And so I still to this day follow Chris's rules for Twitter as one of your tweets you put out. And I still try to follow those. to this day. But thank you for being the guest on Weekly Scrap 29. Guests coming up over the next month. We've got Lex Shady coming up to talk, Nick Ledeen, Tom Johnson, James Johnson. It's going to be an exciting month. Chris Tobin closing out March for us. I really can't say thank you enough. I love the books you have suggested here. And the problem I have now is every time I have a guest on, they give unbelievably, no one repeats to other people. They give unbelievable books that I have to now go get. And my reading list is, I'm so far behind on my reading, it's not even fun now.
Sure.
So,
yeah, well, no, thank you for having me on here, and you know how to get hold of me. So
always, man.
My pleasure.
Thanks again. Thanks everybody that watched. Everybody out there, I hope the tone stays silent for you, unless it's burning. Stay safe out there. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.